Welcome viewers. I am your host Ameya Sathaye and welcome on this very special program called The Envoy Speaks. India and Malta enjoys friendly and cordial relations. India was one of the first countries to recognize independence of Malta in the year 1964 and establish diplomatic relations in the year 1965. India and Malta share a common heritage, being members of the Commonwealth. And to know more on how the relations are shaping up, we have a very special guest joining us today. It is my pleasure and honor to have His Excellency Reuben Gauci, the High Commissioner of Malta to India. And it is also a pleasure to have as my co-host Mr. Ranjit Kumar, who is a senior journalist and an expert commentator on foreign affairs. He was the former diplomatic editor of Navbharat Times, a Hindi news daily of the Times of India group. And he has also written books on India's nuclear policy, Kargil conflict, South Asia Union, and India-China relations. So, welcome His Excellency Reuben Gauci to this very special program.
Thank you very much.
I will start with my first question. India and Malta had historical ties. Both countries were colonized by the British. Connections were deepened as India was also ruled by the British. Indian troops fought for the British and were sent to Malta. Even Maltese troops were brought to India by the British. Now both the countries maintain cordial relations. Excellency, what is the current state of bilateral relations between India and Malta?
Thank you very much for this interview. It is my greatest pleasure as the High Commissioner of Malta here in India to participate in such discussions which are meant to promote the relations between our two countries, especially at this time, if I may say, when we are seeing India becoming very much relevant in world politics. So to go back to our bilateral relations, as you rightly pointed out, our bilateral relations were established on the 10th of March of 1965. Now, Malta attained independence on the 21st of September 1964. And as you mentioned, India was one of the first countries to recognize Malta's independence. In fact, it took us less than a year. Actually, I would say, I think 6 or 7 months to establish diplomatic relations. 21st of September 1964, 10th of March 1965. In fact, this year, 2021, we are celebrating our 56th anniversary since establishing diplomatic relations. Since the beginning of our diplomatic relations, Malta and India have signed 13 agreements and memoranda of understanding. So this shows the impetus which such diplomatic relations have. We are also planning to sign other agreements. Both sides are pushing for this. So, my job here is, unfortunately, this COVID has stopped things a little bit, but I am sure that once everything is finished, the momentum of our bilateral relations will continue. Talking also about our diplomatic relations, I remember when I was a boy, hearing that our president at the time, Agata Barbara, participated in the funeral of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. I remember it in the 80s being said on television that our president was invited and went to the funeral of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi. Also in 1989, the then Prime Minister of Malta, Dr. Edifene Kadami, had a very, very fruitful visit to India. We also had a presidential visit to India in 1992 by then President of Malta, Dr. Censu Tabone. Former Foreign Minister of Malta visited India, Dr. Michael Frendo visited India in March 2005. And then, quite recently, between the 5th and the 8th of March of 2018, the then Foreign Minister of Malta, the Honorable Carmelo Abela, led a 26-strong business delegation to New Delhi and Mumbai. And in fact, whenever I speak to our former foreign minister, he immediately mentions this visit to India. And he was mentioning it to me even before I got appointed here. So it's not because I am the High Commissioner, it's one of his prized jewels, his visit here, the success of his visit here in India between the 5th and the 8th of March of 2008 was one of his prime jewels of success when he led a delegation of 26 business people, which for Malta is quite large, 26 business people delegation to this country. At the time, Minister Abela also met the Indian foreign minister, and also he met the Minister of Commerce and Industry. Also, our Prime Minister visited India. In January 2000, the former PM of Malta participated in the 9th Vibrant Gujarat Global Summit, which took place in Gandhinagar, Gujarat.
Yes.
During this visit, a bilateral meeting took place between Prime Minister Muscat and the Indian Prime Minister, His Excellency Narendra Modi. In fact, there is a very, very, very famous photo of them shaking hands. Whenever one types Malta-India relations or Malta and India, immediately this photo comes up. Prime Minister Muscat also held a meeting with the Chief Minister of Gujarat. So as you can see, our relations are very, very vibrant. We wish them to be stronger. I mean, that's why we have the High Commission. That's why we are putting such a presence here in India, because with bilateral relations, like all other relations, one cannot say like, are you satisfied with them? I am satisfied with them, but there is always room for improvement. There is always room for more, for stronger relations. If you stop, you're going backwards. So like in anything else in life, if you stop, if you say this is enough, this is good, that's wrong, because once you stop, you go backwards. So going forwards is the best way to continue to nourish our relations.
Thank you, High Commissioner. Ameya Sathaye has talked about historical relations between India and Malta, and you have given a detailed account of how relations have evolved between India and Malta ever since Malta became independent in 1964. Both the countries had highest level of political and diplomatic exchanges. Prime ministers and presidents of both the countries have visited to each other country. Now, in the current scenario, how the two countries can cooperate with each other in promoting common interests of both the countries in international fora.
Right. So, mentioning international fora, as you know, first of all, Malta is very, very proud to have voted for India's current non-permanent seat in the Security Council. Malta is also, in fact, trying to get a seat in the Security Council in the very near future, 2023-2024. And we are hoping, in fact, that India also votes for us, because for us it's very important. Now, we understand the difference in size, but as you rightly mentioned, you mentioned how can Malta and India cooperate? Of course, there's a difference in size. I know, for instance, that India is vying for a permanent seat in the Security Council, and Malta wishes all the best to India in this endeavor. But then again, in spite of the size, we can cooperate very well in the United Nations. We have a lot of common values, a lot of common positions, which we can share. And we always like to say in Malta, given our smallness in size, small countries, big issues. When there is a good issue, when there is a good idea, when there is a good value, it doesn't matter the size of the country. So once we are cooperating on these values, values, on these issues, on these common positions, democracy, for instance, right? India is the largest democracy as far as population in the world. Malta is also a democracy, one of the smallest, given the size. But finally, it's the concept. The concept is the same. One person, one vote. So the concept of democracy, the concept of representation, the concept of the rule of the ballot box is one. And on that, we can cooperate very, very well in fora like the United Nations. I'd also like to mention the Asia-Europe meeting, the ASEM. I know that India joined in 2008. Malta was in the ASEM before because once we joined the European Union in 2004. Now, I believe a lot in Europe-Asia relations. Today, Europe is really, really looking towards Asia, the Asia-Pacific region, because it understands the importance that such a region has in the world. Now, India is one of the beating hearts of Asia. So it's a subcontinent right there. So obviously, one cannot have a good relation between Asia and Europe unless India makes a big part of this equation. And I believe that Malta, being a member of the European Union, and also being a member of Commonwealth, I mean, we have to remember, and now I'm going to speak about Commonwealth as well. We have to remember that within the EU, Malta is not the only, but one of the only two member states of the European Union, which are also member states of Commonwealth. When the UK was still part of the European Union, it was 3 Commonwealth members and European Union members. Now it's 2, us, Malta, and Cyprus. So Malta now is one of 2 members. So the vocation which Malta can have in pushing for EU-India relations, for pushing India's position in Asia-Europe relations is very, very important. And finally, obviously, I have to mention the Commonwealth. Malta was a member of the Commonwealth much before it was a member of the European Union. So Malta and India were members of this club of Commonwealth much before Malta took the decision of joining the European Union in 2004. We mentioned the establishment of diplomatic relations. We mentioned Malta's independence. We immediately became members of Commonwealth after our independence in 1964. So there were moments when Malta didn't even dream of being a member of the European Union, but we were full members of the Commonwealth along with India much, much before that. So obviously, how can we, within the Commonwealth, like Malta organized CHOGM twice, for instance, right, in 2005 and in 2015. So Malta was very active in the Commonwealth, and Malta sees big potential within this forum, to cooperate with India.
Hi, Commissioner. I find, India and Malta relations very special, and India is also a very special country for Malta. That brings me to the third question, like, what is the current state of bilateral trade and economic relations? Are you satisfied with the current state of bilateral trade, and how these 2 countries can deepen bilateral relations, and what are the new business opportunities? And if you could help us understand the sectors on which these opportunities are coming or are emerging.
Thank you very much for the question. Now, you are asking me whether I am satisfied. First of all, I have to say, hand on heart, that the work done before I arrived here in September 2020 by my predecessors was huge. I mean, I mentioned, for instance, the visits, right? Recent visits of the former Maltese foreign minister, of the former Maltese prime minister. So one could even see that since the establishment of the High Commission of Malta in India in 2007, even the role of the High Commission increased exponentially. So when this High Commission was established in 2007, it was just the ambassador, the High Commissioner. Now it's me and two other diplomats. The work has increased exponentially as far as visas are concerned. Okay, now COVID has put a little bit of a stop, but before COVID, for instance, the High Commission of Malta and India was the largest processor of visas to Malta from all the other Maltese diplomatic missions around the world. So what does that tell you? That tells you that bilateral trade, economic relations increased. In fact, everybody told me when I was coming here, they told me, be prepared to work because there is a lot and a lot and a lot to do. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we had, we had a sort of like stoppage of certain momentum. But what COVID told me is that because like, let's give an example. In Malta, we have a lot of Indian workers in every field, in nursing, in IT, in production, pharmaceuticals, etc., etc., etc. And I realized the need, the thirst for Indian workers in Malta when we unfortunately had to stop issuing visas temporarily. But a lot of employers in Malta went crazy because of this. Because, as I told you, the importance of the Indian worker in Malta, which also now we can speak a little bit about the diaspora, but the importance of the Indian worker in Malta and the Indian professional is huge. As I told you, for like the most popular import and export products between Malta and India are in the pharmaceuticals, in organic chemicals, machinery and mechanical appliances, electrical machinery, and articles of iron and steel. We are also thinking, and this is a project which was almost coming to fruition, then it stopped a little bit due to COVID, is to import beverages and foods from Malta. I don't have to tell you that, in Malta, on the other hand, in Malta, you find a lot of Indian restaurants, etc., etc. So the Indian food and the Indian culture, food culture, is very, very present in Malta in different kinds of, I mean, we cannot say there is an Indian kitchen. We have to say there are Indian kitchens. I mean, south, north, east, west. And I am aware that what used to be an Indian restaurant in the past, now it's not simply an Indian restaurant, but it is a southern Indian restaurant or a Bengali Indian restaurant, etc., etc. So the presence of India in that sector is also being felt. Obviously, we are, as a country, we look for FDI, for foreign direct investment, the same as India does. So as Malta, we are interested to have Indian entrepreneurs opening factories in Malta, investing in Malta. At the moment, I believe we should also work on Maltese entrepreneurs looking at investing in India, hopefully opening factories here. So, foreign direct investment should be, how can I put it? Should be a two-way street, because each country wants foreign direct investment in its own country. But obviously, it is also advantageous to have foreign direct investment in another country. So it would be interesting, for instance, to have certain factories, Maltese factories here, or Maltese investment here. And I'm sure that there are a lot of business people in Malta who are very, very interested. I have to mention, for instance, that in Malta there is a pharmaceutical factory which is very well known now, Robindo. I know there are other pharmaceutical business people who are looking at opening outlets in Malta. It's important for the Indian businessmen and for the Indian side to note that Malta, being a member of the European Union, if you produce in Malta, if you produce a product in Malta, this product automatically can be sold in all the countries of the European Union. So even though Malta is a small country, and one would say, okay, but if I'm producing in Malta, I mean, I'm producing in a country which is like 450,000 people. It's a very small country. But if you produce in Malta, all your products can be sold to a population of not 450,000, but 450 million, which is the size of the population of the European Union. And I believe that bilateral and economic relations between Malta and India should be based also on that. The fact that Indian businessmen should know, that Indian business persons should know that by investing in Malta, by producing in Malta, they will be able to sell to a market, not just the Maltese market, which is small, but to the whole market of the European Union.
Excellency, I have a supplement question on this. You talked about investing in Malta. So if you could help our viewers understand that what are the sectors you are looking at where Indian entrepreneurs or Indian businessmen could come to Malta and invest in your markets?
Very good, very good question. Now, I keep saying that Malta is a small country, which means if you cannot go to Malta to open, say, a car factory or a factory which needs a lot of land, Malta is 360 square kilometers. So as good and as efficient as it can be, if one is investing in Malta, if one is opening a factory in Malta, to give an example, this place cannot be large. So that is why, in fact, pharmaceuticals, microchip production, for instance, have flourished in Malta. Why? Because you do not require a lot of space, as say a car factory would require. Now, another interesting prospect for investing in Malta would be investing in administration. Malta is very well known for its financial services. So it could be an interesting prospect to open a back office in Malta, to give an example, for operations out of Malta. Now, up until now, I kept talking about Malta within the European Union. But Malta has a very, very good, Malta is in the center of the Mediterranean, in the southern tip of Europe. So Malta is very, very near to North African countries. In fact, Malta is nearer to North Africa than it is even to certain European countries. So Malta is nearer to Tunisia than it is to Sweden. Now, Sweden is a member of the European Union like Malta, but to go to Sweden from Malta, you need 3 hours or more. Whilst to go to Tunisia, to go to Libya, you need an hour or even less. So from its very, very strategic position, one could even open administrative offices for operations in Africa. In North Africa and not necessarily North Africa. So obviously, when opening a business in Malta, when investing in Malta, one has to take account the size, but also the strategic position of the country. We mentioned British colonization, right? The British were known to like places with a geostrategic, with a strategic position. In fact, they were in Gibraltar, which is the opening of the Mediterranean Sea. They were in Malta, which is the center of the Mediterranean Sea. They were in Cyprus, which is the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. So you could always find the British in strategically in strategic locations. And this is important in today's world as well, because a strategic location like Malta could really serve as a hub, as a connection, not just for itself, but for all the countries that surround it.
High Commissioner, you talked about advantages Indian investors can get in Malta by investing there. Indian investors can use Malta as a stepping stone for their products in the entire European Union. Now, Malta is a member of the European Union. India also has a very good strategic partnership with the European Union. Malta and India are both members of the Commonwealth. So both these prominent organizations of the world, India and Malta, are together working. in what way the two countries, Malta and India, can work together to promote common interests in these two organizations?
So yes, definitely, Malta and India can cooperate a lot in promoting values like democracy, like free enterprise. Both countries, in fact, especially now in this day and age, have vibrant economies. We also share a lot in our economies. We believe, for instance, both countries believe in the importance of entrepreneurship, in the importance of the business sector, of the private business sector. And all this is thanks to democracy, right? Because with the value of democracy, with the value of the value of the individual and the freedom and the freedoms that that brings, in such a scenario, business can thrive. Business entrepreneurship and business can become even better and better. So, given that we share all this, I believe that there is a lot that could be done, both within fora like the Commonwealth, the United Nations, but also the World Trade Organization, for instance. And Malta, as I said, I believe that Malta should really push for having stronger relations with India. I remember that very, very recently, on the 8th of May, there was the EU-India Summit, which was hosted by the Portuguese presidency of the European Union. It was a very important summit in which both sides agreed to continue to work with each other and to refresh working with each other, especially as far as the EU-India agreement is concerned. Obviously, there are differences between the European Union and India in such agreements. I mean, these agreements, when we speak about EU-India agreement, a trade agreement, always present challenges. They always present, problems, sometimes disagreements, and that is where countries like Malta could chip in. Being not simply members of the European Union, but sharing a membership of the Commonwealth with India, Malta should be in the front in trying to find agreements, in trying to see that the European side as a whole is reasonable and tries as much as it can to help India achieve its demands and its requests to have an equitable EU-India trade agreement, to give an example.
Excellency, India has emerged as a very important player in international relations. So, what is Malta's stand on India's desire to be a permanent member of United Nations Security Council?
So, basically, there is no reason why we should be against. In fact, we are in favor. We understand that India is a democracy. It has a lot of values which we share. So we wish all the luck in the world, and we are ready to assist as much as we can in India's endeavor to become a permanent member of the United Nations. As I previously said, we voted for India to get its current non-permanent seat in the United Nations. We are also hoping that India would vote for us to get our non-permanent member seat in 2023, 2024. So all the milestones are there. We should just build on them.
Excellency, Malta is emerging as a major tourist attraction in the world. Malta has some wonderful tourist sites, ancient historical sites. How many Indian tourists visit Malta each year and what Malta is doing to attract Indian tourists?
Right. So before COVID, we had a lot of Indian tourists. I believe in 2019 we had around 12,000 Indian tourists. A lot of Indians were visiting Malta for holiday, also for weddings. Indian weddings were becoming very, very popular in Malta. I understand as well that there were even films, Bollywood films being shot in Malta, which in themselves then attracted tourists to the country as well. I know that a lot of Indians visit countries which appeared in Bollywood movies. So Malta is a hub for the film industry, both Hollywood, and now we are also Hollywood films, European films, and now even Bollywood films started being shot in Malta. And this, of course, attracts Indian tourists even for that purpose.
Excellency, if you could talk more about the historical sites which...
The World Heritage Sites, right? That's right.
Yeah.
So, of the capital city of Malta, Valletta, is a World Heritage Site, and it is a UNESCO site. So our capital city, which is 1 mile long, it is built on a peninsula, and today one can consider it as a museum, as a city museum. So it was built by the Knights in 1566, by the Knights of the Order of St. John. It is the seat of government, but it also attracts a lot of tourists. It's a very, very beautiful place. I am proud to say that I used to live there before I was posted abroad. My father, in fact, is from Valletta. It has a lot of interesting historical sites, like, for instance, the Cathedral of St. John, which is really a beauty. It goes back, it was built in the 1570s. There is the Grand Master's Palace, which is also today the palace of the President of the Republic. And even though it serves as a seat for the President of the Republic, but it is also open for touristic visits. In Valletta, just to give you another example, there are 24 churches. Now, when you think that it is just a mile long, having 24 churches, all of them quite beautiful, like, for instance, the Church of St. Paul's Shipwreck, to give you an example. Also, Valletta has one of the oldest theaters in Europe. As you know, there is the Teatro all'Italiana, as it's called, like the semicircular theater with balconies. Now, the theater in Malta goes back to the 18th century. It's called the Manuel Theatre. So as I'm trying to explain, in fact, Sir Walter Scott, the British writer who wrote, for instance, Ivanhoe, said that Valletta looks like a dream. That it's a city which looks like a dream. In fact, even Lord Byron visited Malta as well, and he said that Valletta is a city of stairs, smells, and bells. So we had a lot of interesting people visiting Valletta throughout the years. Valletta was also a seat for some, films, even recent films like Munich and some others. So now I should go to other UNESCO sites. Now in Malta, we have one of the oldest temples in the world. It is called Gigantia. It is a prehistoric temple, but not only. In fact, Gigantia is in Gozo, in Malta's sister island. We also have the megalithic temples of Hajar-Im, and also another very, very interesting World Heritage Site, UNESCO site, is the Hypogeum of Halsaflini. Now, this Hypogeum, what's interesting about it is that it is built underground. So all the other temples which I mentioned, the Gigantia temples, the Tarshin temples, the Hajar-Im temples, they are all above ground. But this Halsaflini Hypogeum is an underground cemetery which goes back to between 4000 BC before Christ and 2500 BC. So, today, to visit this particular place, the authorities are really taking care of the well-being of this place. And in fact, before, when I was a boy, I remember we used to just go and visit. You pay and you just go and visit. Today, you have to book before to visit this particular place, the Hypogeum of Khal Saflieni. And the mystique, the mystery which surrounds this place, the interest which surrounds this place is literally enormous. In fact, I mean, the last time I visited this place was when I was a boy, and now today I'm 45 years old. It's not easy to visit it because you have to book beforehand, and now obviously Corona, etc., etc. But the interest that this place provokes is incredible. Now I have to mention as well Mdina. Mdina is the old capital of Malta. It is also a World Heritage Site. It is a museum as well, a city museum. In fact, properties in Mdina, if I may say, are much more expensive than the properties in Valletta. Mdina is much older. Valletta was built in 1566. Mdina used to be the capital of Malta since time immemorial, like even when the Romans were in Malta. At the time, it wasn't called Mdina; it was called Melita. So because it's exactly it's found in the center of the island. So it was always like the capital, and today it's called Mdina. It got the name from the Arab rule between 870 and 1090. In fact, Medina is in Arabic is the city. What's interesting about this Mdina, as I told you, it's full of palaces. Today, buying a property in Mdina is not easy because of the prices, and also because, I mean, you don't find a lot of properties there in the sense on the market, I mean. So the interest of this Mdina is that it represents actually we say that Malta is a pot of cultures. We had a lot of cultures from the north, from Europe, from Africa, etc., etc. And Mdina represents all this. The structure of the city, even though it goes, before the Arabs came to Malta, but today the structure of the city is Arab, in the sense it has this winding roads. It's built on a hill. But on the other hand, then all the palaces, most of the houses and palaces today are European style, which go back to the time of the Knights and even before. So it really represents Maltese history from time immemorial up until recently. So you even see, for instance, we were talking about British colonization, you even see the British Post or the British telephone box. So literally, Mdina is a showcase of the history of Malta throughout the ages.
High Commissioner, you talked about sizes of both the countries during your conversation with us, the size of Malta and the size of India. Very interesting comparison. The population of Malta would be just over around 400,000, I think.
Well, actually, when I was a boy, it used to be 300, 350. Up until like 10 years ago, we used to say 450, and I'm still saying 450. But in reality, today, if you include everyone, including foreigners, etc., we have now actually passed the threshold of 500,000 this street. It is a dream of mine to be able to see a direct flight between Malta and India, maybe during my time here as High Commissioner. If there was no COVID, probably this dream would have already come true, as I told you. But now we have to, unfortunately, wait for COVID to subside, for tourism to regain momentum, and then hopefully we will get our direct flight.
So Malta has a population of 500,000, And India has a population of 1.3 billion. It's a huge, huge difference.
They're all very huge.
But in spite of this huge difference, Malta is no less significant for India. India is trying its best to promote bilateral relations with Malta. Malta is also doing the same. Thank you very much, High Commissioner, for talking to us.
I thank the High Commissioner of Malta, His Excellency Reuben Gauci, for joining on this very special program called The Envoy Speaks. And I should also thank my co-host and a very senior journalist, Mr. Ranjit Kumar, for being part of this program. This is Ameya Sathaye for sarkaritel.com and diplomacyindia.com signing off from New Delhi, India. Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.